I'm Kennedy Macco, and I'm here with the 2023 Academic Hall of Fame inductees. So, can you all introduce yourselves?
Yes, my name is Tayloria Grant, and I am sitting here on behalf of my grandmother, Virginia Taylor Kenner, class of 1946.
Hello, I'm Lisa Koski Hunt, and I'm class of 1980.
Michael Vinay, class of 1992.
Hi, Carolyn Junzillo Comer, class of 1967.
Hi, I'm Steve Haddad, class of 71.
Lisa Okulich Miller, class of 1984.
Okay, to start off, were you involved in any clubs or activities in BHS?
Yes, so my grandmother was part of the Red Cross, a cafeteria worker. She also was in the varsity choir and the youth center participation.
Oh my gosh, I can't even hardly remember that far back. I know I was in German club, I was in the band, I think I was in pep club. I was an office assistant too.
I worked for the athletic office while I was in high school. However, if you look at the yearbook, I am involved in many clubs because I stuck around on picture day and made sure I was in the picture for every club.
That's true. We all went down to get our picture taken. One was the art club, of course, Future Secretaries, the French club, and I don't know if there was one, but I played basketball. I can't remember all of them.
Well, I was not involved in any clubs because I had a job. So as soon as the bell rang, school was out, I was working. So that was my club.
Work club.
Work club, yeah.
I played tennis in high school and was involved in the yearbook.
Okay. Who inspired you the most growing up? Could be a parent, teacher, someone, any staff member at the high school at the time?
As my family and I talked about my grandmother, we had probably a few that really inspired her. She was a God. Faith was very important to her, as well as her parents were very encouraging. And then she was very fortunate to also have another teacher that went to a church, Galilee Missionary Baptist Church, and her name was Mrs. Edwards. And Mrs. Edwards was her mentor and was very encouraging. She taught school in the South. I think one thing, my grandmother was the first Black teacher as well as the first Black vice principal. So to have someone who looks like her but be able to give her insight into what education meant and what she might be approaching was very instrumental in her life.
I think that my teacher, Mr. Myers, who was my psychology teacher, inspired me to go into psychology, and also my band director, because he really pushed me. Even if I didn't want to do something, he pushed me.
I would say my mother. My mom was a single mom. She raised 4 kids, worked full-time, and she instilled a hard work ethic in me and the ability to strive forward.
There's so many, it's hard to think. One, of course, is my mother and father, my brothers. Just different things for different things.
I would say my dad and his 2 brothers. I know growing up I watched them and they all went to college, so that was my path. But I worked very hard to make sure they were happy about my progress through the years. So those 3.
I would say, my parents inspired my work ethic, but in terms of school, it would have been Mrs. Schofield, who was taught English and the journalism program and writing. And so as an attorney, you write a lot, and she was very thoughtful in her teaching of writing.
What was your guys' most memorable moment at BHS?
I don't think we can say that. Mike can't say any of those
I was going to say, that's, yeah, we probably want to keep that off the record.
I have a good one.
College in those things, so.
Yeah, I will say, you know, during the time I was in high school, there were two classes that were very fortunate to have two very successful athletic teams. And in 1991, the boys basketball team went to the state tournament, and then the following year, the boys football team went to the state tournament. So both of those were very exciting times when I was in high school.
Do you guys have any hobbies now outside of work or anything?
So for my grandmother, who passed in 1994, when she was in high school, she was actually in a sight-saving class, which meant she was at risk for losing her sight and becoming blind. Fast forward, she did many amazing things, but lost her sight when she was in her early 60s. But I say that you asked about hobbies. She always was very creative. In addition to teaching, she loved to sew, knit, cross stitch. As we were reminiscing, the list was long. But I think, you know, she loved tapping into that creative side and doing many of those different type of hobbies. Even when she was blind, she continued.
I spend a lot of my time reading. I enjoy just about any genre. I also like going to thrift stores and garage sales.
I enjoy reading as well. You know, I spend a lot of time working. I find that rewarding. And a lot of times during off hours, I'll be watching live sports.
A secret passion is writing. Of course, art's my career, but that's more than a hobby.
Well, I retired as superintendent of schools, and my hobby became working for a asynchronous school, an online school. So I really enjoy working, but I also enjoy golf. I played baseball till I was 40. I'm 41 now, but I like being active, hiking, camping, canoeing, kayaking, those kind of things. Keep them busy.
My husband's a coach, so I spend a lot of time at sporting events.
Is there any advice you would give to current BHS students?
So one of the things we believe my grandmother would continue to say is to continue learning, always continue to learn. And so that was something, she was an avid reader, and that she continued even later in life to continue learning. Even when she went blind, she learned Braille. And so I think for BHS students, have perseverance, continue to learn, and reach for your goals.
I'd say enjoy your time now. People say that this is the best time of your life. I can tell you it isn't. You'd have a very boring 60 years left or so. But, you know, just take time and enjoy. Enjoy where you are, enjoy where you're going.
I would say, and I mentioned this earlier, I was a non-traditional student in college. I would say it's very important to start formulating a plan now, but it's okay to change the plan and find your own path forward, and I find that can be very rewarding as well.
Something I always repeat is just never be afraid to try anything. That never think that it's beyond you.
I would advise to set goals and in the direction of something that you really enjoy doing, and then work really, really hard at it.
I would just encourage students that if you meet people and they are offering help, to take it.
Can you recall a particularly challenging academic obstacle you faced in high school? How did you overcome it, and what did you learn from that experience?
I think, again, I mentioned about the sight-saving class, but I will couple that with also being the first Black teacher. That fast forward to today, I mean, race was still an issue. And so as we talked about my aunt and my their mother, my grandmother, that she never gave up. She was courageous. She still moved forward. She didn't let people define her. And so I think that is one of those things, like always, you know, keep pushing for what you want.
I think chemistry was my problem. I remember going to my chemistry teacher saying, I am not going into sciences, I'm going to be a psychologist, and I don't need chemistry. And he told me that even if I was going to be a housewife, that I would have to know what chemicals to use to clean the toilet. I know. That really stuck with me. But I just buckled down. I went through the class and I just did it the best I could.
My junior year in high school, I had a calculus teacher, Mr. McManus. I failed that class. During the summer, I was sleeping in bed at about 11:30 a.m. in early August. My mom comes into my room and says, Mr. McManus is on the phone. He wants to talk to you. And says, I saw your class schedule. I changed it. You're going to be in calculus. And I was in calculus, and I ended up acing the class my second go-round. And unfortunately, we lost Mr. McManus that spring of my senior year.
Wow, that's a story. Well, when I say I'd advise trying anything, there's a few things you try, you find out they are no good. 2 of them were cheerleading and French. So you know your limitations.
So in my sophomore year, I had visions of going out for the cross-country team. So I was running, it was rainy, cold. I ended up catching pneumonia. I was out of school for a month, and when I came back, I was able to catch up with all of my classes except for geometry. And Miss Berenson, God bless her soul, she got me through it and she did as much as any teacher ever did to make sure I understood geometry, but I was so far behind, it was a challenge. So I passed. I don't remember the Pythagorean theorem at this point, but that was very challenging, but very worthwhile at the same time.
Math, any math, but I'm exceptionally competitive, so I did okay.
Now, what study habits or time management techniques were essential to your success in high school, and how do you still use them in your current academic or professional pursuits?
As we were, like I say, brainstorming and trying to remember some of the things. So for my grandmother, I think it was a combination of things that maybe were successful with time management. But one thing, I think for her, she was really committed to studying. So utilizing those different tools to have success. But yes, and I mentioned reading as well. And so I know maybe that's not fully the answer of studying, but I think we know she was successful doing it. Maybe that would be the thing, like, okay, Grandma, what did you really do? But I think you'll gain some other insight with the rest of the panelists. But I think I just would leave to say, yes, study, and now we're going to find out some other tools.
I used to write everything down, and I
Okay.
still write everything down. I would make little charts and just put that block of time together and just have no interruptions, focus, and do it.
So throughout most of my high school career, I had a job after school. I worked at White House Chicken, and so I would walk over. The high school I went to was very close to White House Chicken, so I'd walk over to White House after school and work until about 9 o'clock at night, and then come home and try and get my homework done. So something that taught me was just time management, of making sure that you get your studies done, that you utilize all your study halls in school, and any time you have available to get your work done.
For study habits, I was pretty pathetic, but I think I found that studying alone was always my best bet, except for this one cute boy I dated. He was very good at helping me with geometry.
I like Michael, I left school and went to work, and I had to, as soon as I finished work, do my homework before turning on TV or doing anything else. So you got to get your homework done first and then do your other stuff. So
In terms of studying, I'm a list maker, and so list making is how I get things done in my personal life. In my professional life, it's the utilization of those that are around you to help you accomplish your goals.
Were there any teachers, mentors, or role models who played a significant role in your academic journey?
I mentioned a little bit earlier that we recall her talking about a Mrs. Edwards and really being able to give her advice as an educator, as a teacher. But I think that even went beyond just the academic, but like, how do you really help a student with the diversity, different needs, to be successful?
I think my 8th grade English teacher, Mrs. Slate, was so supportive of me and always encouraged me to write and to read. Her husband was my dad's boss at Rockwell, and he had told my father, every gift you give them, like Christmas, birthdays, whatever, always be sure to include a book. And so between that and Mrs. Slate being my teacher, that really put me on a path of reading and learning.
I would revert back to my story about Mr. McManus. I think the lesson I learned from that is that, there can be success from failure, and sometimes failure is very valuable.
I go between two people. My mother, I came home from 1st grade, and there was a little girl in our class that was cross-eyed, and I was fascinated. I couldn't stop looking at her eyes. And I came home and told my mother, and I said, there's a girl there that her eyes are crossed. And she said, well, you be nice to her. And I never forgot that. But the other person that really influenced me is my boss at MIT, Herbert Einstein. I've worked for him for over 45 years. And he was the kindest, most thoughtful person. You wouldn't even think that I worked for him. He was so grateful for everything that I would do at work. And also, he also was instrumental in having me teach there. But he was always kind. The students adored him. He supported a lot of PhD students coming through the school and getting their theses and work done because he was so patient and was very approachable.
I would have to say Mrs. Berenson again. She taught me a lot. I would go in every day and say, I just can't do this. And she kept saying, oh, yes, you can. And she worked with me. She was patient, like you said. And she just made sure I understood what I needed to understand to get through the course. But then as later years, as I became a teacher, I remembered that and worked with students that were struggling. There's a way to get them to learn. You just have to find it. And that's what she did for me.
In high school, I would say, again, Mrs. Schofield. In college, I had a mentor who was the dean of students, and she's still a mentor to me professionally to this day.
And finally, looking back, what advice would you give to current high school students who aspire to excel academically and possibly earn a place in the Academic Hall of Fame?
So I've mentioned earlier about perseverance, and I think that's really what my grandmother would continue to add, is to never give up, to reach for the stars, if I can say, because truly, and do what you love as well, do what you love. And so I'll keep it short right there, but I really think perseverance would be key.
Yeah, do what you love. People, my parents and teachers had told me that psychology probably wasn't the best field to go into, but I was bound and determined that that's what I was going to do. They said, that you're going to need a higher level degree. You can't do that. But I was determined, and I was going to prove everybody wrong.
I would say there's no single recipe for success and to find your own path.
That's perfect. Work at what you love and work as hard as you can, and it usually, as long as you keep at it, it usually succeeds.
I agree with everything everyone has said, but also believe in yourself. You are capable of far more than you hold yourself back at, so believe in yourself and reach for the stars.
People value hard work. And if they see you working harder than everyone around you, they'll value you more.
All right, well, that's it. Thank you guys so much for answering some questions, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.